This time on the X-Files, we'll be covering another manga we've read through and voted for on my Discord. The link to it will be in the description if you would like to join future read-alongs. With that out of the way, let's get straight into Ryu Fujisaki's Wāqwāq. Full name, Wāqwāq. Start date, August 30, 2004. End date, May 9th, 2005. Total chapters 34, compiled into 4 volumes. Ryu Fujisaki has a long and storied career in the manga industry, starting back in 1990 with his submission to the 39th Tezuka Award called The Sound of Hamlin's Whistle, getting an honorable mention and being an alternate retelling of the Pied Piper of Hamlin fairy tale. He would then submit a one-shot named Worlds to the 40th Tezuka Award, winning the second place prize. Worlds follows a boy who wakes up from a coma after being hit by a car, only to find out he's trapped within an endless loop of nightmarish dream worlds. After a few more one-shots, Ryu Fujisaki would start his first serialization in Jump called Psycho Plus, which sadly only lasted 11 chapters and followed Midori Maru, a boy outcast by those around him, but finds a magical game called Psycho Plus that gives him mysterious powers. Fujisaki's next serialized work would be his biggest hit, that being Hoshin Engi in 1996, lasting for a total of 23 volumes. It's not one I personally read yet, but from my knowledge it's based on Chinese myth and literature, but likely keeps a lot of the weirdness that permeates Fujisaki's work. After Hoshin Engi ended in 2000, more one-shots would follow until 2002, where Sakuratetsu Taiwahen would begin, only lasting 14 chapters before its cancellation. This seems to be a more comedic and possibly meta shonen manga that includes aliens. A few years later in Weekly Shonen Jump's 40th issue of 2004, we would see Fujisaki begin his final series in Jump, which would be Wāqwāq. Hopefully from the brief descriptions of his previous work, you'll get a sense that the stories Fujisaki tends to tell are a little odd. Wāqwāq is no exception. Our story begins cryptically. A girl in a desert, mentions of red-blooded gods, and the appearance of a strange mechanical beast. We quickly leave all that though to focus on our real protagonist Shio and his dad, who act as guardians for the people of this land, which is called Wāqwāq. Humans live in underground cities to avoid being attacked by machines, and the Guardians, along with their Gojin Zos, combine to fight them off. Gojin Zos are said to be relics from an ancient civilization that merge with their users as if they're some kind of biological or symbiotic mecha suit. The merger of mechanical and the biological is even more apparent when this shadowy figure merges tons of little machines together into a giant humanoid form, which attack the girl from the beginning of the manga. We get some exceptionally drawn artwork of this too, and it's a great mix of cool, weird, and spooky. Fujisaki's art adds a lot to the manga, making its world feel all the more weird and alien. Shio's father fights the machine amalgamation, ripping out its core where the girl resides, but in the process he sustains massive injuries, and on his deathbed, he transfers his Gojin Zo to Shio, who becomes the new guardian. The first chapter ends on the reveal that the girl is considered a god or kami due to her blood being red. This is odd, as the humans of the Wāqwāq world have black blood. The girl isn't safe at the village they're in, as the villagers see her as the root of all their misfortune, so Shio must take her and run. The plot at this point is quite brisk and emotionally is all over the place due to the death of Shio's dad. This isn't helped when a second Gojin Zo user attacks trying to take the girl, and it's ultimately revealed that there are 7 users in total, all of which have the ability to consume one another to ultimately gain a wish at a location known as the Spider's Thread. It's very convoluted and a lot of information is given to you at once, but over the course of the story I think it does slowly get better at doling out its information and explaining everything, but the beginning is quite rough. The majority of the manga goes on to focus on Shio fighting the other Gojin Zo users, each of which have different elemental powers, and the fights that stem from these are very fun and creative. The character designs are all really unique too, and reflect each Gojin Zo and their elements as well. Sadly, they're all quite underdeveloped as characters, and as much as I like Shio, Leo, and the ninja boy, they don't really excel at being an interesting main cast. The girl I mentioned earlier also gets kidnapped for the majority of the manga and stays with the main villains, giving her even less time to be developed. And you may be wondering why I haven't name dropped this female character. She does have a name, it's Matsuda, but the characters in the story don't really call her by that. Usually she's either referred to as Kami or just girl. She's more of a plot device for the cast to fight over, and at one point she's even referred to as a prize to be won. I'm not sure if it's necessarily just lazy writing, but there might be some kind of commentary going on here about objectification, especially since she's the only major female character and is constantly referred to as a god. Her humanity is stripped away from her, and instead, for the people of this land, she's merely an icon or a tool to be used. I don't think this is necessarily intended or very apparent, but Wāqwāq does give you some food for thought with how it constructs its world and conveys its ideas, and I do appreciate that. Once we reach the final Gojinzo user, Shio is so intent on protecting Matsuda that he's willing to risk everything and merges with his Gojinzo so he can defeat his enemy, but the best he can do is draw. In his state of weakness, the true villain Koto absorbs all the collected Gojinzo and becomes a true red-blood human intent on destroying all the black-blooded humans of Wāqwāq. The background has been sprinkled throughout the story, but in simple terms, humans created black-blooded androids who eventually rebelled due to them being slaves essentially. In response, humans then created the machines to fight against these androids. Both sides ended up with heavy casualties and humans went completely extinct, with one kind of remaining as Koto, but not really. I'm simplifying it, but I do find it pretty interesting in terms of world building. It reminds me of Nia a bit, which I like a lot. They share this idea of a wasteland world, which is permeated by the actions of past humans, yet now all the humans are gone. It's a really interesting setting, and I'm pretty impressed with how fleshed out the world of Wāqwāq is for just 34 chapters. The final stretch of the manga sees Shio revive with the power of Matsuda's blood. He gets a power-up that I'm not sure is fully explained and goes off to fight Koto. We get this epic final battle where Shio fights akin to like Gear 5 Luffy. He's a bit goofier and it's fun to see this little boy fight a god like it's some JRPG. It's over the top with tons of great art which lands with a lot of impact. It follows the rule of cool and allocates enough chapters for that to really take effect, and it mirrors the beginning with all the machines merging together to make one large threat at some point. It's a really fun fight to end the manga with. The conclusion then sees Koto being defeated by Shio, and then Shio getting his one wish, with the manga fading to white. Machines and black-blooded humans live in harmony, and Shio texts Matsuda, who has now returned to their own world. Everybody is happy. I wouldn't say it's a horrible ending though, as the fight that builds up to it and surrounding it is really just plain fun, and I really enjoyed. It left me satisfied, and it at least wrapped up most things, which you can't say for every axed manga. So why did Wāqwāq get axed? First off, I want to mention that Wāqwāq did pretty good for itself, I think. 34 chapters isn't bad for an axed manga. You're lucky today if you get that many chapters, but back in the early 2000s, this was much rarer. What makes this even more impressive is that 2004 was a huge year for Jump, being the year a lot of popular series started, like Death Note, Hitman Reborn, Gintama, and D.Gray Man. It was as stacked as it had ever been, but somehow Wāqwāq was able to survive for an extended period of time. Eventually though, Jump needed some new series for the magazine, and it would have been time for Wāqwāq to go. I'm honestly a bit surprised it didn't get axed earlier with how odd it can be. Maybe things are different in Japan, but Fujisaki's style of storytelling is very unique. I don't think it has mass appeal, and by being so alien in its presentation, it could have alienated a lot of readers. The Chinese inspirations of Hoshin Engi might have helped a lot in its case, as it would have been more familiar to Japanese readers. I'm not sure what Wāqwāq is drawing from, if anything, but Wāqwāq does refer to various concepts that have popped up throughout historical Arabic literature, I think. I love that Jump had an artist that was willing to try different things, as well as apply their art and style of storytelling to a classic shonen battle story. I'm not sure they're the best fit popularity-wise though, sadly, and those factors alongside the state of the magazine and some rough writing choices likely led to its eventual ending. I'm surprised Wāqwāq didn't get axed earlier. Its opening few chapters are rough in tone, exposition, and have some confusing battle artwork. It gets better, but its midsection is full of standard battle chapters. This is where I'd expect it to get an abrupt end, but for whatever reason we didn't, and we got another half to the story, which I think is the best part. I'd also rather a unique and flawed work in Jump than an average one, and to me what we got from Wāqwāq was the former. We also got a few responses from the Discord this time in reference to Wāqwāq. Quicksilver brought up some links to the Prince of Persia and the Wāqwāq trees, again hinting that Fujisaki drew from Eastern myths and stories when constructing its world. Lacking knowledge in this subject though means some subtext could slip me by, so that's also worth considering. Xenomat brings up its good designs, reminding them of Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga. I've noticed Wāqwāq draws a lot of comparisons to other media through its art, but I think that's a good thing as almost all of those works are praised for being very unique and weird. Overall, I think Ryu Fujisaki has great design sensibilities. There's also praise here for its creative fights and easy to follow story despite a lot of technical terms being used, which I agree with. Wāqwāq throws a lot of concepts at you, but they're fairly easy to grasp and understand. It's less confusing than it might seem at a glance. For negatives, predominantly they discuss the characters, which is more than fair. They're the weakest link by far. Shio is pretty basic, and they mention Matsuda being sidelined, which we discussed in the video. Cactus again touches on the characters being underdeveloped and needing more time, while bringing up some concerns surrounding the mechanics of the world which go underexplained, like the time machine. But as usual, the designs are heavily praised. It doesn't really seem to provoke any extreme reaction either way. Overall, most people recognize its flaws but enjoy the elements it excels in, like its art and unique world. Wāqwāq would seemingly be the end for Fujisaki in Weekly Shonen Jump, with him going off to work on other projects, like an adaptation of Fuyumi Ono's horror novel Shiki in Jump Square, lasting for a total of 11 volumes. In 2013, he would move to Young Jump to start Kakuriyo Monogatari, which would last 8 volumes, and a year later after its ending, he would start an adaptation of The Legend of Galactic Heroes in Young Jump. This adaptation is still ongoing, and while Fujisaki presumably doesn't have much to say in regards to its story, the art is beautiful and I think is a good fit for a space opera series like this. Furthermore, it's been transferred to Ultra Jump, the same magazine JoJo is serialized in now, and hopefully the monthly schedule is nicer for Fujisaki and he can enjoy illustrating a bit more, as from interview snippets I've read, that seems to be what he loves doing most. And that was a look at Wāqwāq, a weird little series that lacked a lot of polish but thrived in making an interesting and alien world with some gorgeous artwork. If Wāqwāq does sound like something you'd like to read, it's fully available on the Shonen Jump app in their vault, so it's easy to read legally. I'll leave a link to that in the description, as well as a link to my Discord where you can chat about manga and future ACT series we plan on doing read-throughs of. If you want to see more videos on Shonen Jump, I have plenty on my channel, including my History of Shonen Jump series, where I look at the history of Shonen Jump from its very beginning in 1968. So please check them out and subscribe if that's the kind of thing you like to watch. As always, thank you for watching, remember to be kind, and take care.